Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Scuttlebutt. My name's Pyra Draculea. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been up to this week, arts-wise and whatnot. So, let's see here. Well, did a little bit with helping with decorating my church for Christmas. That was on Monday. A lot of stuff was kind of pre-done this time. So basically what I was doing was putting bows onto the pre-made greenery swags and putting them onto the pews. I will have been showing some photos of that. And yeah, I think that was pretty much my role. A little bit of putting out poinsettias, but mostly that was the other folks while I dealt with the boughs. So anyways, there was that choir for Christmas Eve, the kids' pageant mass. I don't think I screwed up too badly. Hopefully, I didn't hear myself screw up too badly. So yeah, it's pretty low key. I mean, I think I mentioned a little bit on my Thursday theme blog this week was about celebration and whatnot. So I just kind of mentioned. I mean, basically, it's me and my dad here in terms of family, and the rest of the relatives are scattered throughout. So we had Christmas and he did Christmas dinner, and that was kind of it. I'm filming this on Boxing Day evening, right at sunset. I'm not going to bother moving the camera. Um, but we actually went down to Victoria, so I do have a little bit of haul. Although this wasn't all, I guess I'll just go into the haul. This wasn't everything I bought, or I should say, everything here was not bought today because I also found in the trunk of my car a bag with some sketchbooks I had gotten a few weeks ago. Not that I need more really, but like the ones that I like sometimes they're only available randomly. So because I get them at Home Sense, which is kind of like Canada's version of Home Goods, so it's like a TJ Maxx thing. So I'll just get right into that. I think I've shown a couple of these before because I think I found a couple weeks ago, but I like these little Montmartre books and the colored, so I can tell across the room. I mean, there's not a lot of colors. There's like the green, the red, and like a light blue, but still, that's more differentiation than when they're all black, right? So, but sometimes when I want one of these, I'm out and they may not have any again for like 6 months. So when I find them, I tend to like, you know, so I got a red, I got a green, very Christmassy. Actually, I think I have another little green one, but they're the same. So, anyways, I got a couple of these. This wasn't today. This was from the bag in the trunk of my car. Um, and then also I had found in the bag another little sketchbook. This one from Michael's with a little mountain scene on it. These sort of sizes, they're kind of good if you want like a little book. If you do like what I do, which is I tend to divide my sketchbooks by theme, but you don't necessarily want like a monster book. Like it's great to have these little guys. Um, Another Home Goods one, but landscape. The one thing I found, I got the slightly bigger version. Like this is A5. I guess I had the A4. That was the landscape. I did find in working on it, it became a little unwieldy once it's open flat. Um, but I do like that format to mess around with too, especially for like planning. Um, well, I mean, my graphic novels wouldn't be that format, but the linearism of it, of ideas going this way. Although half the time I come up with the last frame and then I realize, no, I got to draw what's before. Anyways, um, but anyways, I do like the format even if it's a bit unwieldy. So I'm hoping the smaller size is kind of best of both worlds, maybe. But of course, when I do sketchbook tours with this format, they become very awkward to film because I either have a whole bunch of dead space or I have to like zoom in and scroll the camera and whatnot. Anyways, I got one of those. Found a little gold sketchbook at Home Goods. Again, this is from the trunk of my car. So a while ago, I think I actually somewhere I found bigger like letter size that were one had a silver color and the other had a gold cover. So those some origami paper that was kind of metallic. I mean, I know how to make cranes, but otherwise I'm kind of useless with origami. But also, I have an idea that we'll see how much of it kind of takes. But the idea has been kicking around in my head since the summertime, which would be to make some like jointed paper puppets to almost do like animation, not real animation, like slight moves and frame by frame, but to do like kind of like for my podcast, podcast edition of Ricky B. Rat, would be to have like jointed paper puppets of Ricky and the characters, so I could set up little scenes, take a still image, and then it would kind of be like a slideshow, as opposed to me having to draw it. But I haven't had time to actually make the paper puppets, but I am hoarding paper for that. And even if I end up just using that to make like collages to use as reference for future paintings or whatnot, kind of love grabbing random papers. So got that. That's also the idea behind a couple of these, and I got these on sale a couple weeks ago at like buy one get one, but some festive type of papers from Michaels. And again, these are kind of the size 6x6 size, so kind of similar to origami paper. And while I'm moving sketchbooks, I'll get into what's in the bucket. Pretty much is what I got today. Anyways, this is the bigger adult version of the baby sketchbooks. I got a red one and a green one, and again, these were kicking around. I had forgotten to show them on haul in previous Scuttlebutts, because I think I got those a couple weeks ago. So, well, the bucket also was from a couple weeks ago, but what in it is stuff I got today. So Michael's, not as good sales today as the Black Friday stuff they had a month ago, but in the art section they did have a lot of like pencils and pens, like the open stock where you just grab randoms. Those were like buy 3 get 2 free, which I guess works out to like 40% off. And then a lot of the other art stuff was like 30% off. So basically not really any better than the coupons, except more items, you know. Otherwise the coupons are like only one item on sale. So anyways, I got another little thing of the Gamvar varnish, the glossy, which I had a whole rant about Gamvar, I think in the first Scuttlebutt, and then I realized afterwards that what I said only was actually only applicable to the gloss. Like if it's gloss varnish in the bottle, it's cloudy in the bottle, it's gone off, but the satin apparently is supposed to be that way. Got a pack of metallic markers by Faber-Castell. So these will very quickly find their way out of the package and then just randomly vanish into my room. Paint tubes today, well, they were 30% off at Michael's. So I've run out of Naples yellow. Now, granted, Naples yellow is basically a mixture, so it's like a whole bunch of titanium white with a little bit of yellow and maybe the teeniest hint of buff or pink in it. But anyways, I got titanate yellow. Hopefully that focuses. If not, I'll just insert photos. So a light clear yellow. It's definitely more yellow and darker than Naples yellow light, but should be all right. What's the light fastness? Oh yeah, so excellent. I'm trying to pay more attention to like the light fastness, so the permanence of the pigments that I'm using, and not get anything that doesn't have that. But I think I'm good for all of these. And then I did get a tube of bone black. And not that I use a ton of black, but when I'm, because obviously you can just take like ultramarine blue and like burnt umber or raw umber, mix those together, you get a really dark color. It's pretty close to black, depending on your proportions. But sometimes I find, depending on what I'm doing, I want it like a dull, neutral black. So the bone black is really good for that. And it's, to my mind, it's a little more neutral, whereas Mars Black almost has the tiniest hint of a red tone to it, but I'm probably overthinking that. And I often mix it with blue anyways, so it doesn't matter. And then chromium oxide green dark. So 3 tubes of paint, and these are all like some of the cheap ones. I mean, obviously, if you get like cadmium, those reds and yellows are a lot more expensive. But then I find I don't necessarily use a lot of those colors in my current palette. I'm more, turquoise, lime green, magenta kind of. So, anyways, this was in the same bag as the sketchbooks. So, and this is from HomeSense. So it's a collapsible brush bucket, which is great for washing your brushes in acrylic painting. But the reason why I got it is because I usually use, like, right now my painting station's behind the camera. So what I often will use, like my big bucket right now, is like a plastic container that like Cascade dishwasher detergent pods were in, which is great as a water container. But then I tend to pour that into smaller containers. But then if you got a lot of crud on your brush, like I'm like wiping it on the bottom and then it's not coming clean. I do somewhere have, like, I have a metal with like a little grid that I use when I'm oil painting. But I swear somewhere I'd had like a plastic one that had like a ribbed bottom or something. I can't find it, for cleaning acrylic paintbrushes. But this one, hopefully that shows up. It has a little ribs in the bottom, so if I'm like scrubbing my paintbrush against it, it should dislodge more of the paint. So, and it was like, oh, $6. So, and collapsible. So if I'm going to workshops, I do have a painting class that I'm taking in January. So it'd be kind of good for taking that, because then I can just make it a little easier. I mean, I try to, and I realize at some point this rubbery bit is going to break down and disintegrate and the whole thing becomes garbage. But, hopefully that takes a number of years. I do find what I try and do when I've got a bunch of crud on my paintbrush, to just kind of go over things and use the color up as much as possible. But sometimes you just can't. So then I'll try and like wipe off the excess with paper towel, because, all those microplastics, a lot of that is actually from paint. Now, for all the people who are acrylic painters, like I still don't think there's enough of us that were the cause of all the microplastics in the ocean. I think a lot of it comes from like commercial paint applications, or like factory paint applications, or, I mean, obviously there's a huge thing about cosmetics and microbeads and stuff. You wash your face with tiny plastic beads to exfoliate your skin, and then it goes down in the drains and ends up in the ocean eventually, right? Um, so I don't think we're the main cause of it, but there is obviously a portion that comes from painting and whatnot, and that's a big argument in favor of oil painting, which I agree with in the long term. It's just that being 100% oil painter right now isn't doesn't really work for me or my space or my ability to store works and whatnot. So moving entirely to oil is an aspirational thing for me right now. Um, I'm still mostly an acrylic painter, like 90% an acrylic painter. But point is, you wipe stuff off and then you still have in the water bucket, and it takes a while to get the crud out of the base of the bristles, especially because have I shown it? I think I may have shown it on a previous, but a lot of my paintbrushes, if not on Scuttlebutt, I think I've shown it and discussed it on Paint with Pyra. But I've some of my favorite brushes are ones where I got the cheap ass ones where you get like the brush pack from Home Goods, Home Sense, and they're Montmart or whatnot, but the they come with the bristles and they're like an inch long or a half inch long for the smaller ones. And if you use them, they all splay out so that they become useless. But what I started doing was taking those and like cutting them short to the point where the bristles were still packed very tight so they couldn't splay out. Um, and then those are great. But then the problem with the fact that the bristles don't splay out is all the paint stuck in there. So anyways, you end up scrubbing the brush. So it's great to have that to kind of get some of that out and then into the water, which I will then flush down the drain and be part of the problem with the ocean, right? But whatever. Say that very flippantly. But anyways, so this would be good for trying to get my brushes a little more clean. And that's probably the clutter right here that's probably just barely picking up is I have a recycling bin that's kind of overflowing here. My dad and I are making a run to the local recycling depot, but probably not until, not until Monday. Anyway, so then at Michael's, the last bit of haul. So, like I said, they had the buy 3, get 2 free. So I got some pens, and these are probably... I'm just going to hold this in behind. So I got 3 of... Okay, one of these is not actually bought today. Yeah. Yeah, I have like 2 of the chisel tips. So one I think was already on my desk. Yeah. Anyways, so I got some of the... Now I have to use the Stapler pigment liners, and I got a couple sizes. One, the 1.2 millimeter, which is like my standard. If you see the shorts on my, so it's actually right way up. If you see the inking shorts on my channel, that's like my main outline pen, and I have... At this point, I probably have like 6 or 7 of them, and a couple of them are running out of ink. And would I bother to mark the ones that are running out of ink? No, of course not. They live in there. But then, anyways, I wanted one with a chisel tip, and I knew I had a couple. But anyways, I got another one. So you can either do a really fine line or it'll go up to like 3 millimeters for really fat outlines. So I got those, and then I also have some of the Micron, the Pigma Micron ones. And what I got today were orange. So I got them in 3 different sizes. 0.1, 0.5, 0.01, 0.05. Am I saying that right? I don't know. The 0105 and the 005. And I got these in orange. Actually, the other day I was filming... working on the official judge thing, and I referenced something about like line work in a little artist book I did a couple years ago, but sometimes I'll use some orange for complementing the black, although it depends on what it's for, because obviously if I was doing that on something that's going to end up black and white, then there's no point because it's just going to be gray. But if it was something I'd be doing color or sketchbooks, it's kind of nice to have that contrast. So anyways, we got some pens there. And then I also got some pencils. So standard non-photo blue. This version is the Prismacolor Premier, and it's PC 919. So these are great for cartooning, or if anything that you're going to scan in black and white, this isn't supposed to pick up. One of these days I'll do a video showing like a traditional comics process as it's been explained to me and my modifications of it. But I mean, actually, if you go and look at like last year's Vlogmas things, now those weren't black and white. I used colored inks, but they all had an underdrawing that I had done before starting the video, and it was all done in non-photo blue. Now in that case, because I was drawing with colored inks, like there's no point because it will show up if you scan in color. But and then I got a couple of the Faber-Castell Goldfaber Aquas. So I guess these are watercolor pencils, but 121 red. The reason why I got these is I've noticed some artists will do their underdrawing with a red. Now, if you're scanning to black and white, that's 100% going to show. But some people said if you're then doing watercolor or gouache or something like that, or colored ink, especially if it's a portrait, the red kind of disappears because it becomes like part of the flesh tone or whatever. But to me, they remind me of like tattoo artists always seem to do their flash sketches in red pencil. I don't know if it's that exact shade, but anyways, I kind of like the color. It's a bit of a nice contrast from the blue if I'm doing more sketchbook stuff. So anyways, I grabbed a couple of those, and then two others. Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black 8B. And then a Staedtler Mars Lumograph regular 8B. So that was my haul. Again, most of it was not from this week. Most of it was, you know, in my car going like, oh yeah, that's why I couldn't find this. Because I got sidetracked. I left it in the trunk of my car. Uh-oh, laptop went to sleep with my notes on it. So anyways, that was that. Finishes, we'll just scroll them on the screen. For Noah, I was kind of lazy this week. I mean, it's Christmas and whatnot. So I think I really just had the 2 marker sketches. The first one this week was on Tuesdays, I do a blog post on noahsarchipelago.com where it's like we're snooping through Noah's diary and I do a little illustration. So this week he was pondering how badly his mother-in-law Agnes was going to burn Christmas dinner. So then the illustration is Noah and his sister-in-law Mallory looking at this burnt, smoking black turkey, and they're both thinking, if only Agnes would let me cook. And meanwhile, Ursula's piping up saying, Daddy, I want pizza. So that was the first one, but it wasn't technically a Noah's Archipelago comic. It was from that. And then the other one that I put up on Christmas Day, where there's a whole big pile of torn up wrapping paper, and I actually didn't draw in any of the presents because I was lazy. But Ursula kneeling and telling her parents, Daddy, Santa forgot to bring anything for Mr. T-Rex, Mr. T-Rex being her favorite stuffed animal. And Noah's thinking, uh-oh, and then the mom, Ruth, thinks up a lie and thinks it up quick and says, I think Santa brings dinosaur toys after Boxing Day. So that was the other one. And then this week I did do, on Christmas Day, I did do a Ricky B. Rat. So this is going to be at Mama Rat's house, so Ricky's mom's house. My, does she ever have a gigantic family room or living room based on how I've drawn it, but we'll just ignore that detail. And Ricky is wearing a Santa costume. He is hanging upside down, caught with his leg in one of those, you know, the rope traps where you step in it and then it gets yanked. You know, the cartoony, typical traps, pulley in the ceiling and whatnot. Under him there is an X marking the spot with one of those beer mugs, beer steins, and it says beer for Santa. The Santa sack is on the ground. The Santa hat has fallen off under Ricky. And there are his nieces and his nephew, his sister's kids. The girls are Sherry and Susie, and they are kindergarten age twins. And then Marvin is like 3 or 4 years old, 4, I think. So either Susie or Sherry, they're identical. I can't tell them apart. One of them says, "Hey, that's not Santa, that's Uncle Ricky." And Marvin says, "Tell Spider-Wat what you do with real Santa, Uncle Ricky." And Ricky says, "Look, kids, I can explain." And he hollers for his mother to come help him. And the kids have, rolls of wrapping paper, so they are going to whoop the living shit out of fake Santa and try and get the real information out of him. So that was, anyways, over talking, over explaining the bit, but those are my finishes this week. So now whips. Well, do have a couple, because I was doing some pen work, like the acrylic pen work on Noah's Clown Dance and Ursula's Parcel. But I had some, and I think that was last week that I had those, maybe. Anyways, I did do more pen work on them this week, and then I'm now starting to block in the colors. So first up, because I have these in here, these are a couple of like the 6x6s, and because they're undertone a bit and kind of like a purplish gray, which I wasn't super happy with. So at some point when I had extra colors left over, before, what I just said about trying to use up the paint when I've got too much on, more than I need, it's kind of great to always have a couple canvases that I'm not working on yet that I can just like randomly splotch extra paint on for a background. So anyways, I think that's the blue that I used for Ursula's jeans, and it was magenta, but it looks purple here. That was on part of Noah's clown costume. So those are in progress. But I think in the smaller, like I do have very fine detailed line brushes, but they're kind of a pain in the butt to work and control with. So I think on these, when I'm working on them, I'll do kind of like a paint pen outline of whatever the image is going to be, then do like some brush work for like torsos and clothes and stuff, but then do the finalize the image with paint pens, because it's a lot easier to control. And I mean, it's all acrylic anyways. So these are, I don't even know what they're going to be yet, but they'll have some little image with my cartoon characters. And it's on the desk. And then I will insert now an image of Noah's Clown Dance, so you can see the current state of affairs on it, and the current state of affairs on Ursula's Parcel. I'm also working on Official Judge for Paint with Pyra, but that the one that I just filmed a couple days ago is going to not come out until New Year's? No, this one was for January 7th. So I'm way ahead on that. So I'm not going to show the in-progress pics of that, because that would be spoiler for Paint with Pyra. But anyways, there's that. So, previous finishes. What it says on my notes is heart monotype, but I don't feel like going and fetching that. So, we'll deal with that some other time. I may have, what I'm about to show, I may have shown in one of the like Sunday show and tell videos from earlier this year, when I was showing things from some of the clay sculptures. I think I showed these maybe, but we'll show them again. Anyway, so for a while, actually a few years, 2 years anyways, I was taking ceramics at Ladysmith Arts Council with Jennifer O'Brien. It was hand-built ceramics. Jennifer's now teaching out of her, she does still teach some stuff at Ladysmith Arts, but she doesn't teach ceramics there, because it's kind of the logistics of lugging things back and forth and whatnot is a pain in the butt. So she teaches out of her studio now, and it doesn't really work with my schedule and whatnot. So I haven't been taking ceramics in a while. But I was for a while. I was doing ceramics pretty much every week and hand built. So, anyways, I'll link to the little sculpture tour there. But one of the days, one of the sort of she would have assignments that you could just her take them in whatever direction you wanted. So one of them was about like doing they were kind of like garden stakes or whatnot. And I kind of decided like, yeah, garden stakes, I don't really need them. Um, so my allotment of clay, I decided to make these two little things that could be garden deco, but I actually probably wouldn't put them outside. So we have a sort of a relief mask of Noah. And oh, the other thing I was thinking of is like sometimes you see like plaques for the garden, like to put on fences and whatnot. One of the common things would be like the north wind. So it's like a dude blowing and like his hair becomes like streaks as if it was like the wind. So, anyways, this is Noah as the north wind blowing a kiss. So start with the flat plate and then kind of built up his cheekbones, his nose, his eyeballs, and his lips and his hair a little bit. I did the hole in his hair that string. I would not want to tap a nail through that. That's very small hole. So I would probably, um, and if I'm hanging it inside with a string, then it becomes a matter of like, do you knot it? How sure are you of your knot, right? Um, I don't know. Anyways, at some point I'll figure out how to hang this up and display it. But Noah as the north wind. Anyways, the other motif you commonly see in like garden plaques for decoration would be like the Green Man, which is kind of like a mythological sort of thing from British, you know, British culture going back to like pagan times and whatnot. So, anyways, Ricky, I did as the Green Man. So he's got oak leaves for hair. And he's looking a little confused because probably Ricky thought green was going to mean weed or something. But anyways, so there's Ricky as Green Man. So the clay we used is called, we're not entirely certain. The box said that it was speckled buff. Speckled buff is supposed to be speckled. Now, there are no speckles like the back and whatnot. It's just tan. So there's a couple possibilities. It might have been mislabeled. You know, the store may have put plain tan um, clay into like Laguna Tan into that, or some other clay into the box that was speckled buff. Or it may be sometimes with some of the clays, um, it depends how you fire them, so that maybe if it is speckled buff, it may be that like yeah, it was fired enough for the glaze and whatnot, but maybe you need to do like sometimes you do an oxidation firing versus a reduction firing, and don't ask me what the difference is. I don't freaking know. I just know that there is a difference. There are some clays that will look radically different in a reduction fired environment, which I think you have to have a gas kiln to do that. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I've got it backwards. Whereas the electric kilns, because their temperature profile, anyways, it gets extremely complicated. This is why I'm not a potter, because it just makes my brain hurt trying to think of it. But anyways, it may be that it is speckled buff, but it just the speckles didn't come out because they were fired in a standard stoneware type of what I don't know. Anyways, speckled buff clay supposedly, or mystery clay that claimed to be speckled buff. And then the painting was done with underglaze. I think Jenny mostly uses some of the speedball underglazes, and I know she has spectrum glazes and whatnot as well. But anyway, so painted with underglaze after being bisque fired, and then just a coat of clear clear glaze to seal it all. So yeah. Anyways, I may hey editing Pyra, depending on how much detail is picked up, I may take like a still photo with close up details of like especially the leaves and Ricky's hair, or Ricky's leaves kind of have a little more texture. But then I may just cut out this little bit if it looked fine when I held it up. But anyways, those are, anyways, so Noah the North Wind and Ricky the Green Man, my little previous works. I do like doing sculptural work. I don't have the storage facilities for it. I don't have a garage or anything where I could have a kiln, but also I don't do enough ceramics. I was debating that a couple years ago. Like, okay, am I going to take the plunge, work more sculpturally, buy a kiln? Then you have to have a hardwired usually. So I mean, my dad's a retired electrician, so I could probably do it, but I don't. Anyways, it gets super pain in the ass. And I just decided I didn't want the learning curve or the hassle really. So what I may do in 2026, I have a bunch of like polymer clay stuff that I haven't really ever. I've done a little bit, but not enough. So I may, if I get the itch to start sculpting again, since I'm not really bothering with ceramics and the time frame for Jenny's thing, it doesn't currently work with me, yada yada yada. I may start doing a little bit of like polymer clay, small sculpts and whatnot. So I don't know. And by the way, if anyone's interested in polymer clay tutorials, there's a bunch of really great ones online. I think my favorite channel for that sort of thing is forget what the dude's real name is, but his channel is called Ace of Clay. So, but he has tons of tons of small sculptural works, and he has like tutorials. Like, I think when the first time I stumbled upon his stuff, he was making somehow it came up in my algorithm on YouTube because he had a video about making a small sculpt of like Edward Scissorhands, and like the detail in the costume and all that was just incredible. I kind of got hooked. So that is something I'd like to do more sculpting. Do I have time to do it? Probably not, but I do have the materials, so I should probably use them. Anyways, that's previous finishes. So what have I been watching this week? What is infecting my brain? Still been reading a couple of the art books that I mentioned a couple times ago, like Daily Rituals, A Life in the Arts, and the Starting Your Career in the Arts, or whatever, Starting Your Art Career. So I've read a little bit, but I haven't had a lot of time to read because I haven't made a lot of time to read. Let's be blunt. And then stuff that I've been binge watching. Binge watched a bunch of Will Tennyson videos. You know, the bodybuilder dude who will do like, I ate nothing but junk food. I ate the world's unhealthiest foods for 50 hours, and of course he feels like garbage within a few hours, like not even 50 hours, like 12 hours. So binge watched a bunch of his stuff. I tend to like, I subscribe to a ton of channels, and then I'll like not watch one for like 3 months, and then I'll watch that whole 3 months worth of content at once, type of thing. Jewelry Journeys is another one. It is kind of annoying because I think the voiceover has to be AI, because at times it sounds like an almost human voice, but then like some of the words will be pronounced wrong, where you can tell it's like, oh, that's a robot doing it. And then some of the language and whatnot, it's kind of like, okay, nobody actually talks like that. That's annoying. But you know, they have loads of pictures of tiaras and stuff like that. And of course, I'm a girl. I like sparkly things, so uh, I actually have not a huge, but I do have a small collection of like um, fake tiaras, obviously from like Amazon and Etsy and whatnot. I used to have more of them. I think I got rid of a few, but you know, the ones are like $20 rhinestone ones. So looking at pics of the real ones is kind of fun, and it does kind of tie into my art in a sense. One of these days I got show so well. I think I did show on one of the earlier Scuttlebutts, like a still life that I did like 5 years ago. That was like a watercolor that had like leopard print boots and stuff like that. Anyways, so some of the like tiara stuff kind of ties in with that. But also in Noah's Archipelago, his daughter Ursula is obsessed with tiaras. We don't see it that much. It'll kind of be there for a little while, and it goes away and it comes back again. Um, but anyways, it's kind of fun to keep tabs on that because that's the sort of stuff that I think Ursula would be very interested in. Um, like I wasn't like a proper Noah done on the iPad, like full color, but there was a marker sketch I did was it last month or the month before? Whenever the guys broke into the Louvre and they stole some of the French crown jewels from the museum. So I had a cartoon. I'll just insert it here. But Ursula thinking that she can go down, take her piggy bank allowance down to the local pawn shop and get her hands on one of those tiaras. Because little kids won't understand. They may know like stolen goods. They may have heard about stolen goods being pawned, or fenced through a pawn shop. Not that they would really know about what a fence is, but they may have heard about stuff may be stolen at a pawn shop, which maybe or maybe not. But in any case, that may be a rumor that kid has heard. But she's not going to quite add up the bit that something stolen from the Louvre in France is probably not going to end up in a pawn shop in Victoria, BC. But she wants to get her dad to take her to go and look. And he, of course, says no. Anyways, so every so often, and like, what was the wedding? It can't have been Harry and Meghan, because I think that was like I only started this Noah's Archipelago in 2022. Oh, it's a coronation, pardon me. It's like I know there was some event where I had a little plot line over the space of a week where Ursula is like obsessed with tiaras again because of something with the royals. But yeah, okay, that was the coronation of King Charles III and Camilla. But yeah, every so often that comes up. So that's my excuse why I watch stuff about crown jewels and tiaras and whatnot. So there's a bunch of channels along that line that I watched. But I've been binge watching Jewelry Journeys this week. Watched one, maybe two streams from Ray Ray is Happy. Love his stuff. I should watch it more often. But it's one of those things where when I have the time, I will. He was doing a really fun cartoon of Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus having a little pool party or barbecue party after all the deliveries were done. So that was a fun cartoon. I've been watching some Ellie Dashwood, some of her videos about Pride and Prejudice, and then some Catherine Kay. I think Catherine Kay is currently doing videos on Disneyland Paris. She and her husband went for Christmas this year, well, they probably actually went before Christmas, because I think it's like a couple weeks ahead of when they were posting. But anyways, I've also been watching some other stuff from their like a couple trips to Japan, like earlier at the beginning of this year, and then like 2 years ago or whatever. So, anyways, so that's some of what's been inputting into my brain this week. What's coming up this week? Well, it's New Year's. Be a little bit more productive than this week, I guess. One thing I think I'm going to be trying this week, definitely something I want to start in 2026, but I've been thinking for a while about a live stream. Because, the thing with the videos when they're pre-recorded and then I'm editing and whatnot is it does take a lot of extra time, right? So I'm thinking for something simple where I just have my phone on. I've got like a tripod that has a gooseneck so I can curve it over. I've had this tripod for a while, so the most recent, like certainly the Inktober videos, that was all done with this thing on my desk. So I'm thinking instead of doing it vertically, turn it sideways and just have like once a week a live stream where I just work in my sketchbook. I've got various things, so I may be working on a watercolor of my characters, or I do have a couple other projects. Like I would like to do a coloring book at some point with Noah. So, and I've got the Ricky B. Rat graphic novels and stuff that I have to ink. Although the inking I might not do, because if I screw it up because I'm trying to talk, like then that's kind of a bummer to have to redo a page. So it may just be like other drawings, stuff that might become postcards or merch or something at some point. But have like a stream where I'm drawing and talking so it's a little more casual, and kind of do it as a live stream. You stream from my phone. If I park my butt on either of my desks, I can either do it in front of my iMac so I can see if there's any comments. Who knows? Maybe nobody will watch. Maybe my brother will watch. Like whatever. But so I could monitor chat on a different screen other than what. Anyways. So we may if I I'm not saying if, when I launch that, I'm thinking it's going to be a Tuesday evening thing. So we might get it started this Tuesday, or it might not start until, the Tuesday after in January, probably in actual 2026. But anyway, so that's a possibility of what might be coming up this week. I'm going to be trying to, I don't know if I'll get Ursula's Parcel completely finished next week. I probably could, depending what else I'm working on. And I'll be working a little bit on Noah's Clown Dance and, of course, Official Judge. But that's the Paint with Pyra videos. We don't talk about that on this show because we're way behind in current time versus what's already pre-recorded. And I do need to... I do need to get my Noah's website updated. I think I've said it like 3 weeks in a row. And I do need to finish the first Noah's Archipelago anthology. I think I still have a couple trademarks that I need to go through and double check. I did a bunch of those, and then I think I found a few more. So things like, Ursula's obsessed with Lego, but that is a registered trademark, and I'm sure they probably wouldn't mind. I mean, I don't know. I've never had dealings with Lego as a company or whatever. So just as an example, I have heard Mattel is very litigious, and even if they don't object to what you're doing, like there's a reason why, like on The Simpsons, Lisa plays with Malibu Stacy rather than Barbie, right? So anyways, I did come up with I did go through and change a bunch of business names to like cartoon versions. So like Lego is Dane Bricks in the Noah's Archipelago world. But I think after I had done a batch of like 40 of them where I had relettered, and I just went into the original file, erased the trademark, and just wrote in the new name. And then exported the JPEG again. But I think after I had done that, I think I found like I think there's like 10 more that I had missed. So it's one of those things where it will only take me an afternoon to do them, because for each of those 10, it's basically a 10-minute job per. I just have to go unlock the layer, erase, rewrite, lock it again, export, So it won't actually take long, but it's just a matter of like focus, right? Because there's that, and then I think there's only like 7 bonus cartoons, and then the content of the book is done. The last thing I would be doing is the copyright page, because I need my ISBN number for that. But I can kind of have all the other stuff there and whatnot. But basically, I should be able to finish that book within like 2 weeks if I buckle down and focus on it. So I probably won't focus on it until next week. And then once I have all that done, then I know my final page count. Then I can go into, because I'm going to be self-publishing through Amazon KDP, the Kindle Direct program. So, but in order to get the template for the cover, I need to have my page count, because then it tells me how fat the spine needs to be. So I know what the cover is going to be, but I need to actually draw it. And anyways, hopefully I'll be starting to get moving on that. But it's going to be New Year's, so probably nothing really gets back to normal productivity until like Monday the 5th, is my guess. And not even that, because I have to take my dad to an appointment on the 5th. So probably more like Tuesday the 6th. But anyways, I'm kind of blathering, but hope you've all had a great Christmas, and Happy New Year. Obviously, I'm a few days early on the Happy New Year stuff, but you know, and I'm going to say it again next year, or not. Well, it will be next year, next week. I'll say it again for the first show in 2026. But that's what's been going on. And look at my clock. I think I've actually managed to get this one under an hour. Did that pick up in the mic? I don't know. My laptop just did the little iCal notification thing. Apparently, it's time for me to do my daily errands. Well, I already went to the grocery store today. Don't worry. Anyways. So thank you for watching, links and all that, yada, yada, yada. And the bottom, you know the drill, but like, subscribe, all that stuff that every YouTuber was like, nah, nah, nah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Happy New Year. See you next time. Bye for now.